I'd like to call to order the meeting, the Carson City Planning Commission meeting on November 29, no, how about December 19th here? On December 19th at 5 p.m. And this was great. There we go. Okay, sorry, a little flustered tonight. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and Tomer, may you please have a roll call?
Chair Preston,
Here.
Vice Chair Lloyd, Commissioner Borders, Commissioner DeChristopher, Commissioner Kilgore,
Here.
Commissioner Cron,
Present.
Commissioner Perry. The quorum's present.
Thank you. And I'd like to ask Commissioner Perry to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Commission of Public, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. And at this time, the public is allowed to do public comment. And what we ask you to do, you're invited to do public comment and discuss any topic that is relevant or within the authority of this body. If you're here to discuss something that is on the agenda, we'd like to ask that you please wait until that comes up. Is there anyone who would like to have just come? Okay, come on up, Denny. And please sign in.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I want to wish everybody happy holidays to start out with and make this pretty brief, but thank you all for being here. I'm a little flustered too. It's been a day. Carson City is inviting people of the community to participate in the highway. People of Carson City is inviting the community, according to the appeal A19, nice deal about the considerations on Highway 50 through from between U.S. Highway 50 between 150, 580 intersect at Carson City and Highlands Drive. It's out to Mound House area there. I'm sorry, I'm not real good at this today's. More maybe hard there than others, but I do want to encourage people. I also want to encourage people to please, I'm not used to having to talk for other people, and I generally don't, but I do want to say that we as a community, if we're going to complain about something and we're not getting involved, shame on us. We have to let you know. We have to keep you informed of our observations, our considerations, our concerns. And it's really our responsibility to do that. You all have enough to cover with just reading your agendas and finding out about those specifics, and to keep a broader open mind to those concerns and considerations, but we have to get them to you. So I encourage all of us, including me, to make those things known so that you have better opportunity to have a broader picture. Thank you very much.
Is there any other further public comment? Seeing none, I'd like to ask for the approval of the minutes of November 28th, 2023. Have all the members read? Commissioner Perry?
Madam Chairman, I will make a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, November 29th.
Do I see it here?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Borders. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes pass. Okay, I'd like to go on to agenda item number 6A, LU 2021-0452 for possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding a request for a one-year time extension to January 26, 2025 for an approved special use permit, SUP, to allow for the alternative compliance of the downtown mixed-use standards, specifically standards related to multi-use sidewalk window transparency and building envelope setback requirements in a multifamily residential development on property zoned to downtown mixed-use DTMU located at 201 East William Street, Assessors Parcel Number APN 002-16110. And,
I'll take this one.
okay, and Heather, can you please? just an
Thank
overview?
you. Heather Ferris for the record. The applicant is proposing to construct a 207-unit apartment complex on approximately 4.93 acres located on the south side of East William Street and bounded by North Plaza, East Washington, and North Stewart Streets. This is an allowed use in the downtown mixed-use zoning district, subject to meeting the standards outlined in Division 6 of the development standards. However, the project, as designed, required alternative compliance to these standards and therefore required a special use permit. The Planning Commission first approved this special use permit on January 26, 2022. The applicant requested and received a one-year administrative extension in January of this year. They're now requesting an additional one-year extension. To date, the applicant has received approval for their stormwater permit from the state, completed the required lot line deletion, which was condition number 13, demolished the buildings that were on site, and submitted their site improvement permits and building permits for review by the city. Staff is recommending approval of the extension because the special use permit as approved continues to be appropriate and the use will not adversely impact other properties in the area or the public interest. Brendan Murphy is here representing the project, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
There we go. Brendan Murphy with Kings Barn 1645 Village Center. I have nothing further to add, and I agree with the conditions of approval that's in the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Commissioner Borders, looks like you have a question.
Heather, on your progress report here, when was the site improvement permit applied for, and when were the building permits applied for?
The exact date.
Anybody?
I can tell you that when I reviewed the building permit application, it looked like there had been a review this summer, June or July, and I believe the site improvement permit was about the same timing. And they've been working on our comments and making those corrections to their plans, and then they'd be submitting revisions for review and approval.
All right, well, then I would guess I did ask the applicant what's taking so long.
I think at this point, so we do have the site for the site permit. We're on our third submittal right now, and I think this should be our last one. I think it should address all of the questions at this point. And then our next one is the building permits, which will be our second submittal. And on that one, I was just told by the architect, I was hoping to resubmit it before this, but he's doing a quality control on it. And I'm thinking we should be able to submit it by this week as well.
Okay. I just have a problem with things going on forever and forever. You know, it's been 2 years and all we've done is scrape the lot.
Commissioner Cron?
And maybe this is a question more for Heather than the applicant, but if we do grant the extension for a year and they don't cross that line, a similar concern of Commissioner Borders, and they don't cross that line a second or third time, what happens? Do they come back and see us? Is the project dead? What's the administrative approach from the city's perspective related to one more miss of the deadline?
So if they don't initiate the project, so if they don't have shovels in the ground within 1 year from the date of the extension, then the project expires. They do have the opportunity to request yet another extension, but they would have to come back before this body. If the project expired, then they would have to start over again from scratch and go back through the entire approval process.
And then, so basically, clearing the site doesn't constitute the project starting?
No,
No, okay. So it's basically shovels in the ground for construction of the project, not demolition, that
correct.
kicks in the start date of the project,
Right, so we would assume issuance of the site improvement permit and shovels in the ground.
Okay, any further questions?
I have one more.
Yes, Commissioner Border?
If we amend recommendation number 4 by removing the second sentence and say, should the permit not be initiated, the permit shall be null and void, which gives them 1 more year.
So you just want to eliminate the second sentence in
Yeah.
that?
I just want to say we will give them 1 more year.
I think that's at the pleasure of the planning commission
Well,
and we can see
it'd
what the
also be at
applicant
the
says.
Applicants,
Yep.
could you accept that?
Yeah, I think if I could just take one more look at it. I think I know it took away the extension, right?
Yes. It just says you have a year.
Okay, and would that also be the pleasure of the commission?
Yeah. Would be, yeah. The
Right.
commission hasn't said okay yet.
Right.
But I was,
Mhm.
if the applicant's not going to say so, it's kind of a moot point.
I guess if that was to be removed, what would be the next step?
Heather Ferris again for the record. So if the option of an additional extension is removed, then you have to go back through the special use permit approval process again. So you have to go back through the entire public hearing process. The permit that you have would be null and void.
So I'd say I believe at this point with our civil permit and then our building permit that we submitted as well, it hasn't varied from what we've submitted as far as the last SUP. Right. Except for
Madam
now,
Chair.
we're,
Yes. Excuse. Okay, please
oh,
go
so
ahead.
I would say, to get put on the spot for if we would remove the extension now and never have another option to extend it again besides going through another SUP. I guess that'd be,
That would be
Up
3
to-
years from the start. You've been working on it 2 years. You say you're very close.
we are very close.
Okay, so it would seem likely that if you're going to do the project, it would get started within a year. I'm just saying, I hate to carry these projects on for year after year. We have several that have come back year after year after year, and there doesn't seem to be any progress. It would just, it's just a spur, if it would, to urge you guys on to either yell at the building department more often or to get some shovels out and start doing something.
I see.
It has nothing to do with, and from my standpoint, it has nothing to do with the permit itself and the design and all that stuff. I think I'm happy with that. I just want it to get either started or not get started.
I see. Okay. We have designed it and I see it says 207, it's 210 units, but we would like to construct it and start building it.
Okay.
So would you agree to that being removed? That last line?
Let's see, should this permit not be initiated, obtain a building permit and no extension granted, the permit shall become null and void? Okay, an extension of time.
It would read, the use of this permit is approved shall commence on January 26, 2025, which is a year from now. And that doesn't seem right. That it should commence January 2024, correct?
January 2024 is next month.
The use for which this permit is approved shall commence on. Okay,
It's
gotcha,
a one-year
gotcha.
extension from the
Okay,
date
gotcha.
that it
Yeah,
expires.
all right.
Yeah.
And then the second sentence is out, and the third sentence says, should this permit not be initiated, the permit shall become null and void. That would be my, and
So,
excuse me, Madam Chair, maybe we need to find out if that's acceptable to the board before we. put
Well,
some-
I think one thing though too is it would be acceptable to the applicant before the board could actually even vote on that, right?
right, and I think if we did have to come back and do another extension, I think we would be coming before the planning commission again as well.
And coming through and
Right.
doing a new SUP is essentially what they're saying.
I
Correct?
believe so. I think that's,
So, no,
Wait.
so if you take away the ability for the extension,
Mhm.
yes, he would have to come back through, get the full approval of an SUP.
Right.
If you leave the ability for the extension in there, he would come back before this body to request an additional one-year extension, above and beyond what you're granting him now. So there's two options. Or you can deny the extension that's before you currently.
right.
Okay. So,
Sorry.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
And I appreciate what Commissioner Borders is saying. We've lived, the planning manager and I, and Heather Manzo, we've lived with projects that just seem to take forever. And it's frustrating, it's hard to track. That said, I feel like what you're going to do is creating a bit of a precedent.
mhm.
And so I want to caution you on that. What the code says is that the commission has the authority, in the event that circumstances beyond the control of the applicant result in failure to complete the applicable SUP conditions and commence use, you have the ability to grant an extension. So I think the first question you asked the applicant was, why didn't you get it done in a year? You had a year. What have you been doing? He gave you an answer. We've had a really interesting couple of years with what's happened with interest rates, with COVID, with all sorts of stuff. And there's been quite a few requests for extensions that have come forward. And we can't predict what the next year will bring. So what you're doing, if you say, this is it, don't come back, get it done this year, is you're not allowing him, you're not allowing for unforeseen circumstances to come up. And you're saying, get it done, otherwise your entitlement's gone and you're starting over. And I'm just, the only reason I'm cautioning you is because we've seen these come up with what we've had these last few years. And it's just something to think about. Thank you.
And Commissioner Perry. I have a question.
I was going to comment on a similar thing. I think we have a procedure in place for extensions now. I mean, if this comes back next year, this commission can always say, no, you've had enough. But I think there are a lot of circumstances there. I mean, COVID and things that can happen in the economy and various things like that, and you know, the entity that has done this has obviously put a fair amount of money into it already. And they look like they're moving forward, and I don't want us to set the precedent that, hey, we can pull the rug out underneath somebody who has expended a fair amount of their resources if their intent is there. Now if it's a sagebrush flat now and 3 years from now it's a sagebrush flat, then that's a different story. But I see progress out there, and this is a challenging site anyway. It had to have a fair amount of cleanup. It's where the old train station and roadhouse was, and you know, look. You know, I think when we sat here 2 years ago and looked at it, it looked like a a nice addition to the city of infill development in a brownfields area. So I'm not supportive of putting a limit on it and just saying 1 more year and you have it.
Thank
Okay.
you. And Commissioner Cron?
Yeah, although I certainly share Commissioner Border's concern, but I do think the applicant has made progress. They've taken down some buildings, they've done some other things on the site. I think there is, or the applicant is showing intent. And even though I'd like to see things move along faster than they are, I realize that this isn't an easy world to get something built in. And so I do appreciate the applicant's honesty with us here today. I wouldn't support removing the opportunity for another extension either.
Yeah, public comment?
Madam Chair,
Oh,
I
I'm
give
sorry.
up.
Yes.
I give up.
You give up? Okay, all right, Commissioner Borders has surrendered. So I'd like to bring this forward to public comment, okay? And this is a chance for anyone that would like to make a comment on this particular item to come forward. We do have a limit of 3 minutes, and please be aware that we cannot answer any questions. If you have something that you need to say, please say it, and then the staff will go ahead and address your concerns.
Thank you very much, Denny French, Carson City. Thank you, Chair and Committee. My concerns aren't the extension. I agree with you that there's been so many different switchbacks and such, and that they've made a fair amount of investment in this and time and such as well. I do want to suggest that it's not in keeping with what I would want in that particular site. It's downtown, almost into the historical area, and the train station was a historical misstep on ours selves. I think we should have kept it and made the train. Anyhow, another day, another time. But I do want to say that one of the considerations is on A5.2, the window deal, and there was some concern about the types of windows that would be at street level and all of that. So I'd like that considered. And I'd also like to suggest that the planning be really consider the fact that there's very little space and the type of trees that they put in to fit that space. A lot of times we have these great hopes and wants and such, and it just doesn't fit this location. In this, they're going to have to be very considerate on their choice of trees. Otherwise, we're going to have a mess in the street. We're also going to have a obstructed sidewalk, and there's going to be a lot of maintenance involved. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry. I have time. Elevators, please consider changing our position on that. Is not your place. You can't change the master plan, but I do feel after having helped a 91-year-old go up with the assistant of assist lift recently after he'd been in the emergency, I couldn't have gotten him up those stairs. Luckily, staff knew about that opportunity to have help come out, and they did come, and they were gracious and got him up the stairs. But not having elevators, I think, is it's discriminative towards people that are less ability. I have to avoid stairs as much as possible. I'm not saying I wouldn't move into a place that had stairs, but I'm saying please start to consider that we're going to be building for our own aging into, and having elevators is very important in my mind, and I like to have those considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Is there any other further public comment? Okay, bring it back to staff.
So I think I may have missed part of his comment. I did hear that he wanted us to consider the trees. The trees, I know the applicant's been working with Public Works on the types of trees that can go in the locations closest to the sidewalk so as not to interfere with sidewalks or any of the underground utilities. Elevators are outside of your purview.
Exactly. Okay, I'd like to bring it back to the commission.
Let's see.
And what I'd like to do with the applicant is, because we had a little bit of segue there, is reconfirm that you accept the conditions as written.
Yes.
Thank you. Just wanted to reiterate that. I'd like to put it up. Okay, Commissioner Perry?
So in the original approval 2 years ago, there was an item 13, And there's a recommendation here, the way the conditions are to eliminate item 13, which was a lot line deletion, right? Could you
That's
just
been-
comment on that?
That's been completed,
Okay, so it's no longer necessary.
Correct.
It was done, so, okay.
correct.
That's all I had.
Okay. I'd like to bring it back to the commission for a motion. Okay, Commissioner DeChristopher,
I move to approve an extension of the expiration date for LU-2021-052, 0452 to January 26, 2025, as the approved special use permit continues to be appropriate and the activity permitted by the SUP will not adversely impact other properties in the area or the public interest.
okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kilgore. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Got my own file.
Yeah, please build it. Okay, we have item number 6B, LU 2023-0384 for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding an application for a special use permit, SUP, to allow for the construction of a structure exceeding 45 feet in height on property zoned retail commercial RC located at 4011 North Carson Street, assessor's parcel number APN 002-761-03, and Heather.
Good evening, Heather Manzo for the record. So this request is, as you mentioned, located on the northeast corner of the intersection of North Carson Street and Silver Oak. It's currently a vacant piece of property. The applicant is proposing a new building that would exceed our 45-foot tall building height limit for the retail commercial zone. So with this, the site has been designed where it is conforming with code in terms of parking, landscaping, and other relevant items contained in our code. So what's before you this evening is specifically the request for exceeding the 45-foot height. So most of the building is just over 46.5 feet tall. However, there is a portion on the southwest corner, which is closest to the intersection, that would be just under 53 feet tall. So what's before you this evening is that request. I did want to note that while this is for a hotel use, the use is actually allowed by code. So if they were going to be constructing a structure that's 45 feet or less in height, there would not be a requirement for a special use permit. So with this, staff is recommending approval. I haven't received any public comment or inquiries on this request. And I wanted to turn it over to Stephen to address some conditions related to engineering.
Thank you, Heather. Yeah, I just wanted to draw attention to two conditions. One is a pro rata share for sewer, which is, I think this commission has seen on several other projects. There's some sewer main downstream. That is above the capacity according to our development standards, but there's additional capacity in the pipe, so we're not allowing it to overflow or anything like that. There's sufficient room to take the flow from this project. And then the other one was improvements to the intersection of Carson Street and Silver Oak. That one's worded a little differently than some other pro rata share conditions that we've had because the price is based on a traffic signal, but the city is going to be studying this corridor, and the ultimate solution at that location probably won't be a traffic signal. It might be something else. We're just not sure at this point what that will be. So.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Thank you, Chair. Stephen, is it potentially because there's too many traffic signals together, and so that's why we're looking at other options for that intersection, like too close?
I don't believe it's that so much as that there's other geometry that could be implemented there that would function better for the movements that are having difficulty.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Stephen, am I just going to say the word roundabout and just upset people? Is that what we're going to go do here?
I'm not sure.
Okay, okay, non-committal. Okay, is the applicant available? Please come forward.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can I ask Heather a question first?
certainly.
If in fact this structure was less than 45 feet, how would the contributions to these two items be adjudicated? How would we have done that?
So the way the code is written, our development standards, is that with your sewer impact study, your traffic impacts, there's a minimum threshold that you have to show that you're meeting. So the way the development standards are written, technically they could be just on the hook for fixing it. Entering into an agreement like this is in the developer's benefit. And on a regional type improvement like this, we will typically treat it the same way if it's going to building permit, where technically we could say you have to fix it, but that wouldn't really be just. So we
Well,
would
I
allow them to.
I understand
elect
that,
to
but
do
I'm
that.
kind of, what I'm kind of getting at is if the only thing that triggered this special use permit was the elevation. If that wasn't an issue, would all this other stuff just kind of disappear and maybe someday it would show up, or how did, you know, is the tactic to get a special use permit so that you can put these things in concrete so you don't have to worry about them? Talking about from the developer standpoint, or, you know, I guess I'm just curious about the mechanism.
Yeah, so we did actually discuss that topic to some degree as staff. So to answer one of your questions, no, there's not like a goal to push people in the special use permit to get these things put in concrete. Like I said, the development standards are pretty bulletproof to require them to mitigate anything that needs to be mitigated. So they could elect to enter into a pro rata share agreement. We couldn't, the way the standards are written, we couldn't force them into it, but we could force them to just fix it. So like I said, it's in their advantage to do it that way. And on the other topic, so it also kind of depends on how the application is presented. In this case, you know, we had the application with a full traffic impact study, sewer impact analysis, and the height does potentially allow for other additional units. So if we had an application before us that said, you know, we're applying for the additional height, it has no impact on units, and therefore our sewer main analysis says there's no impact to the sewer, we would look at that differently than how this application was presented.
Okay, Commissioner Crone?
Yeah, a question for Heather. In looking at the drawings as you have up on the screen, we're talking about the additional height being used to screen the parapets, are we not? Is that correct? Am I understanding that drawing correctly?
I think it's actually more of an architectural feature so that they can have varied building heights as you're going down the line. And then there is that architectural element on that southwest corner, which has the greater difference. So the applicant can further address why they've requested the special use permit for height.
Okay, because yeah, that's just, I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to it per se, but I was just curious why the additional architectural feature, and if the applicant can answer that, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
For the record, Jaswinder Dami. So if you look at the drawings, the corner, the green you see on the corner on the bottom, which is south elevation, that additional 10 feet is that feature on the corner, which is a very, I'll say, brand central. This is a Hilton property. And so this came from the brand standards, and they wanted us to incorporate that. And if we didn't have that 10 feet, we will be more likely under the 45 feet. But to the point, yes, we are trying to mitigate, because we're going to have some mechanical units on the roof, and it's a very general procedure to have a higher parapet to screen or so that it's not visible. The good news is we don't have a high freeway here. If this was South Reno, then it'll be even worse. We might have to go even higher. But here we have, a city road now, which is not a highway anymore. So to the point, I think that corner elevation is what required the additional height.
If I could follow with a follow-up question. So if without this feature, you would be pretty much at the 45-foot height?
I think so.
Would be close.
Very close, yes.
Okay. And have you read the recommendation conditions of approval?
Yes, the two recommendations for the stormwater and actually the sewer and the traffic signal, which will be something down the road. Yes, I do agree to both conditions, and we will share our cost of those improvements.
There's actually 9.
9? Yeah, but
I got it.
but
we're
I'm
looking at
talking
all
about the
9.
financial impact of here. Yes.
Okay. But you do agree to the 9 conditions, including the 2.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And, our family built the Holiday Inn Express next door 20-some years ago. So we totally understand, and the Dolphin Bay apartment. So we totally understand the code and the procedure and, how the building permit will go. So I agree to all 9 conditions, yeah.
Terrific. And is there any questions from any of the board before I take it to public comment? Commissioner Lloyd?
I just have one comment. Thank you for paying your taxes.
And Commissioner Cron?
Yeah, this is more of just a general question, not so much related to the project per se, but I'm interested. We do have a lot, well, not a lot, but we do have a number of other hotels in town. And you're bringing online another hotel with a lot more rooms, which give us room tax, which I appreciate, and the community does too. But you saw a market for this type of a product here in our community? I guess you do. You wouldn't be here, but can you explain that a little bit more, please?
So, since I'm a hotelier here for 27 years, we developed the Holiday Inn Express. Our demand is growing, and we are putting a different project here. So this is not a normal hotel. This is an extended stay hotel. Every room is going to have a full kitchen, a full refrigerator, indoor pool. We got Staybridge Suites that opened about 5 years ago, I'll say somewhere around 4 to 5 years ago, which is part of the Holiday Inn family, and this is part of the Hilton family. So there is always demand for extended stay, for long-term hotel rooms. So this is the demand that this hotel will fill up, and this is the high-end hotel. So down the road, if the city is going to have a convention center, I know I was part of the tourism board for a number of years, and down the road, if we have a convention center, this will help us to bring those large meetings and conventions into town.
Thank you. Okay, I need to bring it up for public comment. Is there anyone that has public comment? Please come forward, Mr. French.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I have questions. This building has elevators, I hope, but I'm hoping that's the case. But also, are these eventually have any idea of considering going to condos? Because that would be a whole different ball of wax, or would that change the trajectory of how you would zone it, or how it would be set into the master plan run of what goes into that area, hotel, motel type deal, as opposed to condos or independent housing or such? I just wondered. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further public comment? Seeing none, I'd like to thank you for investing in our community. And I'd like to bring it back to, please answer the question about the condos.
Sure, I'd be happy to. In terms of elevators, I think hotels do generally have elevators. That would be a requirement of the building code. In terms of whether or not this could be in the future condominiums, that would be a totally different request. Is it possible? Yes, but it would require a special use permit and a full evaluation of a conversion from a hotel building to residential. So, is it possible? Sure, but it's not what's being presented this evening.
Thank you. Commissioner Borders?
Thank you. I have a question for the developer here.
Certainly.
If you were building this in Santa Barbara, you'd find a way to put that blue band at the 45-foot level. I just, in that area, and you having been at the Holiday Inn Express, know that everything out there is basically the same height. And that 45, that decorative partition just, it bothers me.
I totally understand your concern, Mr. Borders.
Not only that, but it hides your Holiday Inn.
Well, I'm no longer the owner there, so. And that's why I had to wait 5 years, because it was part of the deed that I
Okay.
can't do anything next door. So to answer your question, if you folks are familiar with Reno, we have an exact same building by Meadowood Mall.
Mhm.
So, and I know there are hotels that are over 45 feet in Carson City. So, Ormsby House. I know
Well, it's
but there has been development. So if I'm investing over $20 million in a building, I want to do it right, and the brand wants it. And they change this every 2-3 years, and this is something that came from the brand. And I want to do a project which is modern and which will, after 20 years, that I will say, okay, I did it, it was worth it. So to answer your question, if it was Santa Barbara, yes, if it was required. But right now, there are buildings that are over 45 feet, and there are hotels. So I think it's a valid request, and it originated from the brand, not from me. So,
Okay.
because these brands are very definitive on what you can do. Second question about elevators. So in hotel buildings, when you go over 3 stories, this is a 4-story building. When you go over 3 stories, you go over 80 rooms, it kicks in a second elevator. So we're going to have 2 elevators, which I think is the norm right now.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Okay. And so I'd like to go ahead and bring that forward for a motion. Commissioner Cron?
Yeah, I'll move, or I will make a motion. I move to approve special use permit LU-2023-0384 based on the ability to make the required findings and subject to the conditions of approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, you ready for this one? You want to go first? Okay. Going on to item 6C, and it is ZA 2023-0426 for possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors considering an application for an ordinance amending the Carson Municipal Code CCMC Title 18 to allow for a child care facility use in a residential office, RO. Use is a conditional use. And I'm going to ask staff, should I also combine the other one so that we can take care of that in 2 type of things?
If you'd like to open it up now, that's
Yes, I would.
That's acceptable.
Please. And I'd also like to bring forward item 6D, LU 2023-0423 for possible action and discussion and possible action regarding an application for a special use permit, SUP, to allow for the establishment of a child care facility on property within residential office, RO, zoning district located at 2805 Mountain Street, Assessor's Parcel Number APN 001021-12. And Commissioner Lloyd.
Commissioner Lloyd, for the record, NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. In my private capacity, I am the Vice President and volunteer board member for the Boys and Girls Club of Western Nevada, who is the applicant on item number 6C and 6D. As Vice President and board member, I have a fiduciary duty to the Boys and Girls Club of Western Nevada, which is a commitment in a private capacity. In my view, the judgment of a reasonable person in my position would be materially affected by my commitment in a private capacity to the Boys and Girls Club of Western Nevada, and I will not be voting on this matter.
Okay, now it's my turn. NRS 281A-420 requires me to disclose a conflict of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. In my professional capacity, I'm the listing and selling agent for the property located at 2805 Mountain Street and the subject of this SUP. As the agent, I'll be compensated for the sale of the property, which may not be completed if item number 6C and 6D are not approved. This constitutes a direct pecuniary interest in the sale of the property and the approval of these agenda items. In addition, the sellers and the Boys and Girls Club of Western Nevada are both my clients, and as clients, I owe fiduciary duties to both of them. This is a commitment in a private capacity to the Boys and Girls Club, the applicant for the agenda items C and D, and in my view, the judgment of a reasonable person in my position would be materially affected by my pecuniary interest and commitment to private capacity, and I will not be voting in this manner. And both Commissioner Lloyd and myself will be stepping off the dais and handing this over to Commissioner Borders.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Point of order, Mr. Reese. Quorum. We have five members. Is the quorum, is approval 3 votes, or is it a quorum of the members present at 4 votes?
Approval is 3 votes. For the purposes of this motion, because both Commissioners Lloyd and Preston have recused themselves on ethics grounds, the ethics laws state that the board proceeds as if they were not board members.
Okay.
So you're now down to a 5-member board, and a majority vote is 3 votes.
3. Thank you. All right. Heather?
Thank you. Good evening once again. Heather Manzo for the record. So the first request is the text amendment to add a child care facility as a primary use to the residential office zoning district. As the code is currently, and this is a copy and paste from that page of our code, a child care facility is only allowed as an accessory use to a residence. So with this application, the request is to allow for a child care facility to establish as a standalone use with a special use permit either way. So item number 3 in our code are for conditional use permits that would require a special use permit. All other non-residential zoning districts within the city do allow for the establishment of a primary child care facility without it being accessory to a residential use. And so this change would make the residential office zoning district consistent with other non-residential zoning districts within the city. In addition to that, as you can see from the list of allowed uses with a special use permit in the RO district, other uses that are appropriate with a special use permit include kindergarten through 12 school and churches. And as we know, sometimes those properties are a lot larger than a child care facility and have or can have a much greater impact to the surrounding neighborhood. So with reviewing our code and with taking a look at the fact that with a special use permit, we can take a look at each request for a childcare facility on a case-by-case basis, staff did feel that it would be appropriate to allow for a childcare facility to be established in the RO district with a special use permit. So with that, that concludes the presentation on the text amendment. Chair Borders, would you like me to go into the presentation for the special use permit at this time?
Yeah, you might as well.
Okay. So I just wanted to note that the zoning text amendment is a citywide text amendment before I go into the SUP. So that would affect the residential office district itself and is not specific to a location within the city. It would be a citywide amendment to our code. So the second request that's before you this evening by the Boys and Girls Club has to do with a special use permit to allow for the establishment of a child care facility. So this is reliant upon the approval of the text amendment to allow for this facility in the RO district. So there is a condition of approval that is recommended to require a child care facility to be allowed at this location for this use to establish. So the project site is on the east side of Mountain Street to the south of West Nye Lane, which is accessed from North Carson primarily. And that's particularly important in this case because the primary access to their parking lot comes off of Nye Lane. There's a private easement that kind of borders the property lines on the east and west side of the middle block there that goes down to serve all four of these properties that front on Mountain but have parking located on the east side of those buildings. And with this, it's a fully developed site already. As many may know, there's an office that was operating here until such time that the Boys and Girls Club was pursuing this as a potential location. With that, there are only modifications that are related to converting the building and the site to a child care facility use. So the building is going to remain the same with the exception of adding doors to meet the child care facility requirements for exiting. And then there is a modification to the east side of the building where there's parking currently today, and there will be an 1,800 square foot playground area. In addition to that, there is an accessory garage structure on the very far northeast corner of the property. That is being requested to be converted to a commercial kitchen to serve the Boys and Girls Club childcare use. So the parking has been modified, but they do meet the parking requirements for a childcare facility. And as noted on their site plan, primary parking is within a parking lot contained on the site. However, there is, Mountain Street does allow for on-street parking, and so the applicant did provide information showing that there can be at least 5 vehicles parked on Mountain Street should the need arise, just as part of the access to the property. And then these building elevations just show the addition of the doors. There's no other modifications that are being proposed for the building itself. And then I did want to note that public comment has been received. We distributed late material, I believe, this morning for all comments that were received by 3 p.m. yesterday. And then we did receive 2 other letters that were provided to the Planning Commission and are incorporated into the public hearing packet at the back of the room. That those letters are in support of the request. One of them was received from the superintendent of the Carson City School District, and the other is the owner-manager of the Skyline Estates. So surrounding this property to the north and to the south is Skyline Estates. So those 3 parcels are operated by the same owner-manager, and it is a congregate care facility. So one of the letters that you received this evening is a letter of support from the congregate care facility owner. In addition to that, the late material included a mix of folks who were in support and also opposed to this request. I did want to note that some of the concerns that were raised were related to noise, traffic, potential nighttime activity and the impact to the neighborhood, and drainage issues to the east. In terms of noise and on-site activity, the project will have that primary parking area and employee parking area on the east side of the project. So in terms of parking, there shouldn't be a whole lot of activity happening on Mountain Street. In addition to that, the applicant did provide for us kind of a breakdown of what they anticipated in terms of employee and child arrival times. So they really do have staggered drop-off and pickup times. And then in terms of noise, because this facility could hold up to a little over 100 children, that play area really lends itself to having staggered play times. And the applicant has proposed this facility to serve families that have children ranging in age from 6 months old to 5 years old. So I'll turn it over to Stephen to address the other engineering-related items. But I did want to note that staff was able to make the findings on both of these requests and is recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Yeah, so I wanted to address the traffic concerns and drainage. So starting with the traffic, there was a traffic impact study that was done for this project. That study looked at Mountain Street and West Nye, the intersection of the project driveway and West Nye. The driveway actually accesses out the back through that parcel to the east. There's an access easement out to West Nye. And then North Carson Street and West Nye Lane. All of those intersections had acceptable levels of service in the future scenario with the project. So that all checked out. One thing I wanted to draw attention to, though, is in the traffic impact study, when the consultant was doing this analysis, they did observe some people making an illegal maneuver to make a left turn onto North Carson Street, which was going halfway through and then parking or stopping temporarily in the middle of North Carson Street and then finishing the left turn. So in the traffic impact study, it talks about how one way to solve that would be to create an acceleration lane in North Carson Street. We discussed this with our transportation division, and similar to the discussion we had on the last item, there's a study of this entire corridor, which will impact the geometry of this street. And so since it is an existing issue that's based on the geometry, not on the volumes of traffic going through, and since it's an issue that will be addressed with improvements to North Carson Street, it didn't make sense to require them to make improvements to that intersection now and potentially have it be removed in a couple of years, because we're looking at the study's going to be done probably in the next calendar year, and then we'll be looking at design and construction in the next two to 3 years after that. So that's the traffic point, and happy to take any questions on that. On drainage, somebody a citizen brought to our attention that there's drainage issues in the parking lot to the east of this parcel, which that's where their access comes through. When we were notified of that, I actually drove out there, and it was during the rain that we recently had. And even with the small amount of rain we had, you could see it was starting to pond in that drive, the parking lot. And so a couple things. One is it appears that the issue is lack of maintenance of the drainage facilities that were constructed for that parcel, which has less to do with the special use permit in front of you, more to do with enforcement of our existing codes. So our stormwater division is aware of it. They are going to be reaching out to the owner of that parcel to rectify that issue. That being said, we also looked at the drawings for when the subject parcel was originally developed, as well as the parcel to the east. And based on those elevations, the main structure and the playground that's being added, those are at a high enough elevation that even with flooding, those are outside of any area where you could have inundation. It's really just the drive aisle driving into the facility where you could have some standing water. So, and with that, happy to take any questions on either of those.
Okay. Stephen, West Nye also floods right there when it intersects Carson. And I don't know that that's run back from backflow from that parking lot, but that whole area down there doesn't seem to drain very well. Now, I know the parking lot may have some problems, but I think there's some other things that probably need to be looked at in there also when you start to do that, because some of that water is coming from somewhere else and it's not getting into the ditch down there. And if we find a way to do that, that might alleviate all those problems. Are there any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I had a couple. I wanted to.
Commissioner Carnine, hello down there.
Hello.
All right, go ahead.
I wanted to pedal back to 6C if we could, Heather. When it talks about on page 2, when it talks about the establishment of childcare facilities with an RO zone subject to approval with an SUP, childcare facilities are a primary use within these other different zoning categories: neighborhood business, downtown mixed use, limited industrial. So, and you may not actually have kind of that, you may not be able to answer this question, but why wasn't that originally put into the mix? This seems like an awful lot of, if you look at all the different zoning types that they're allowed in, why wasn't RO added into that originally?
In speaking with staff, I do know that at one point in time, it was an allowed use in the RO district. Why it came out, I'm not entirely sure if it was by accidental omission or if there was a specific amendment that took place. But historically, it had been allowed in this zoning district in the past.
Okay. And then just a clarification for me along the same lines, that if we don't approve item 6C, then item 6D can't go forward.
So item 6C, the Planning Commission is making a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for a text amendment, so it's an ordinance. So your recommendation would be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors. If the board were not to adopt the ordinance, then correct, 6D could not be instituted.
Not be acted upon.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Heather.
Are there any other questions for staff? Heather's applicants here?
Yes, they are.
That's your cue.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Brett Zanino, CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Western Nevada.
I'm assuming that you approve of the amendment change, but as of the conditions of approval, there are 5. Are they acceptable to you also?
Yes, they are.
What is this going to be? How many children are you going to try and license this place for?
Its capacity would be at 111. More than likely, operational capacity would fall lower than that, about 100 to 109.
And where is the drop-off point?
We have 2 drop-off and pickup points. Yeah, if we can bring it back up in the east alley that Heather was talking about. That's where we're going to be asking parents. We have 9 drop-off and pickup spots there.
In the parking lot area?
In the parking lot area.
Okay.
And then we have the 5 in the front as well. But overall, we'll ask our families to learn how to use that back alley entrance. And like Heather said, with the staggered use, it should not be a problem. Or staggered drop-off.
I'm not as concerned about the number of people, but just where the kids are going to be. So,
right.
Okay. Are there other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I had just a quick few.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, excuse me. The daycare facility is actually licensed by the state, correct?
That's correct.
So the city in that capacity doesn't have any dog in the hunt, per se. In other words, the city doesn't, I guess what I'm trying to do is separate in my mind the difference between the approval of the project versus the licensing. And they're 2 different things, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And does the facility, or will the state, with the square footage in the building and the amount of the amount of children that you want to put in the facility, are they okay with the amount of usage that the facility will potentially involve?
Yes, we've already spoken with the state, and we've taken their recommendations into consideration in the design and moving forward on the project. So, yes.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Perry?
Thank you for coming in,
Sure.
Mr. Zanino. Yes, over my time here, we've had a lot of daycare centers requests.
Okay.
Because it is a critical need in this community, and we've heard from a lot of folks that there's a long waiting list. So I'm curious about whether or not you already have a waiting list, and if this is approved and goes through and the council adopts the ordinance, how long before you could open up?
We do not already have a waiting list. Everything, the project moving forward depends on the zone text amendment and the special use permit. At that point, then, we would raise the funds to close on the building in escrow, which would be somewhere around April or no later than June 28th. Once we get approval with the Board of Supervisors, then we would move forward with the rest of the project, and then we would start our grand opening. That would be a part of the campaign to open the club. And we would have basically the entire year from April or June all the way through the end of December to do our marketing and communication for that. And I would imagine with the statistics that we have with childcare usage, specifically from the Quad County Regional Community Health Needs Assessment and the Governor's Childcare Policy Report, that for every child in daycare, there's 3 waiting for a spot. With the capacity of kids that we have in our community, that we would have a waiting list for sure. I think every daycare in Carson City right now has a waiting list.
So you were here for a previous item on the agenda here, an extension, and these special use permits are good for 1 year.
Correct.
So just keep that in mind, assuming that this moves forward, that you have that 1 year. And if you haven't got to that point of where you're operating again, you have to go to city staff and request an extension.
1 year, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner DeChristopher?
Yeah, to underscore what Commissioner Perry said, simply because of the need that exists in our community, and I know we did have some pushback, noise levels or whatnot, but when you go out and you walk that area, I think it's a great location for what you're doing. So I hope you move quickly so that we can get more kids into that facility. Thank you.
We agree with that sentiment. Thank you.
Commissioner Cron?
Another question for the applicant. I certainly have appreciated the letter from Perry Wood. One of the concerns that I had when I first saw the project was, with 100 children, the noise level is going to be not quiet.
Right.
And so I was concerned, as with the neighborhood's concerns about noise and traffic and those kind of things, but the actual adjacent property owner and the uses, and maybe you can explain this for the public, is really supportive of this particular facility in this location and the benefits that it could give to their residents in those other facilities that are next door, directly next door.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Wood, who's the owner and manager of all 3 of those facilities, as soon as I approached him about this, he was elated for 2 reasons. Number one, the interaction with seniors and with children statistically is just an amazing thing. I've got mounds of data here that I could read to you about why that's important and significant, and for a number of reasons with children and with senior citizens or aging adults. Number one. Number two, his workforce is primarily single moms that need daycare. And at first blush, he was thinking, wow, we could probably help fill a couple of spots in the daycare. And as far as the noise and traffic and that sort of thing, when we talked to him about all the things we're going to do to mitigate that, he was 100% on board.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have some sort of presentation you want to show us?
I don't have a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to say what you wanted to say.
I would like to when it's appropriate. I have a few comments.
It's appropriate.
Okay. First, thank you all for allowing me to present to you today, and thank you for considering the special use permit and the zone text amendment. I do want to point out a couple things about this daycare facility, which Commissioner Perry, you had pointed out. Daycare, childcare is a significant need in our community. According to the Quad County Regional Community Health Needs Assessment, it ranked daycare number 4 on a list of 47 or 45 needs, and for family incomes that are less than $55,000 a year, it ranked number 3, so it's pretty significant. And then the Governor's Child Care Policy Report that was released earlier this year, Nevada was coined a daycare desert because in Carson City, for every child in daycare, there's 3 waiting for a spot. It went on to further say that it probably is a good root cause for depleted workforce, higher prices of goods and services, and inflation. In other words, it's negatively impacting our community at the deepest levels. However, the report did point out that nonprofit community hubs like the Boys and Girls Club of Western Nevada are uniquely qualified to handle these challenges and to solve these issues. And so we couldn't agree more. We've been serving the community, as you all know, for over 30 years now. with high-quality programming. And we believe that dovetailing our current programming with daycare programming is just a catalyst to spark our economy, our local community, and to help our families and our children who desperately need this daycare. And we believe that 2805 Mountain Street has the potential to be a game changer. With 100 kids that don't have a place to go, now they have a place to register for Smart Start. We're calling them Smart Starts. Families that have to leave their children at home to watch their siblings watch other siblings that aren't qualified for that, or just left unsupervised, can now be mitigated. Of course, we have now families can go back to work because they have another 100 spots to choose from for daycare. And finally, we have a workforce that can be improved because now employers can retain quality employees because now we have that daycare component. I also want to point out that we do realize that we're moving into a community where there are people living there, their homes. And the daycare will make it look different, but we are not opposed to working with the community. As a matter of fact, that's our goal. This is what this is about. It's about community. It's about families and children. And so any concerns that would be brought up, including the ones that we already have, that Heather has received, we're going to address those as best we can. And we have the same concerns. We just want to make sure the community works together to meet this pressing need to solve this daycare issue and help our economy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Public comment? Yes, sir. The man with the gun is always first.
Oh, my gosh. Am I parked all right?
This was a sting.
Something I said.
Oh, Lord, for the record, excuse me, for the record, Chair Furlong, and I would like to express my support and echo those comments that have already been made here. For qualification purposes, I do sit on the Carson City Behavioral Health Task Force. I sit on the Quad County Mental Health Board. I sit on the Board of Health for Carson City, and as a honored board member of the Boys and Girls Club. This issue is a major impact for our community. I can tell you that even today, just today, I received the resignation from a member of my own staff, a Carson City employee, over daycare issues. Daycare issues for new families are a major, major impact on the health of our community. And I compliment the Boys and Girls Club for this initiative and moving forward with it. And I strongly encourage support amongst the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Did that in 60 seconds.
Hi, my name is Alex. This is on.
Make sure the green light is on. Okay.
It's not like, it's
Then
like my
bring it
first time.
close. Bring the microphone closer.
My name is
There you
Alex
go.
Walden. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. I'm here to voice my support for the Boys and Girls Club, not only as a proud board member, but also as a single mom. And in fact, I'm a neighbor of the facility as well. So you get all three in one with me today. Firstly, as a member of as a board member of the clubs, I could tell you in depth about the impact that we have on families here in Carson City and the Carson Valley, but I'm just going to summarize that because I think that a lot of people know that. What we do matters, and providing affordable childcare services to low and mid-income families, having a safe place for kids to be themselves, be treated equally regardless of their life circumstances, as well as learning social and life skills they don't have access to elsewhere. What we do matters, and I'm extremely proud to be a part of that small part of that tremendous impact. So. Secondly, as you may notice, I'm a single mom. I can tell you firsthand that there was a time in my life I was paying more for childcare than I was for my living expenses, including my mortgage. So that was almost a decade ago. So it's amazing to me. It's just getting worse. But beyond the financial burden of childcare, there's also, as we talked about earlier, a severe shortage of quality childcare in this country. It is called the childcare desert, as Brett referenced. That means that for every 3 children under the age of 5, there is 1 slot available. So, and we talked about the impact of this, but it may interest you to know that, I have a report that says the estimated national impact of the childcare crisis is $122 billion with a B, $billion. But here in Nevada alone, that is $1 billion. So it is significant, not just nationally, but here in Nevada as well. We talk in the billions. We know that's important. So it's just a step in the right direction for working families for our community. And again, we mentioned the wait list. I was on the wait list for over a year for both my children to gain access to quality local daycare. So in order to support our employees, our small businesses, and the overall future of our community, this is an important step in the right direction. And again, coincidentally, I actually, according to Google, live about 700 feet away from this proposed facility. So when I said I'm in the neighborhood, I meant it. It's about a 3-minute walk. And I don't think that they could possibly make any more noise than my children do, especially during the play dates and slumber parties that we've had for preteens, which is new. But I just want to stress, I've never had anybody knock on my door and tell me to keep it down. So I certainly think we're a great neighborhood, welcoming, and I'm excited to have this here for us. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Did you want to say something? Can my children say something? Is that okay?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely. They have to sign in, though.
Oh, do they?
Say
Say your names. They don't have all day. Say your name.
Just state your name and go ahead.
My name is Tessa.
I'm sorry, say it again.
My name is Tessa.
Tessa, thank you, Tessa.
What do you think about childcare in our neighborhood?
It's going to be great for the kids.
Good.
Right. Thank you, Tessa. Okay, now you add it. Say your name.
My name is Adeline,
Okay,
What do you think?
and I feel like the new daycare would be great for the kids that don't know much.
Yeah, then they would learn.
Like, yeah.
Okay, and then they have a safe place. Remember you told me? Go ahead, finish it.
you have to tell me. I can't know it unless you tell me.
I don't. A safe place with you talked about your teachers earlier. Remember your daycare teachers. You can tell them thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very intimidating.
All right, Denny, how you gonna follow that?
I'd like to ditto just about everything that was said. And I'd like to add that relevant to this is there are studies out that are suggesting that if you could start pre-kindergarten schooling, it enhances the child's opportunity to get a big leap in all sorts of different aspects of living and skills and such. And so a lot of places are advocating the kindergarten educations, and they're using their public schools as opportunities. And they have to get it financed, and it's really a tricky way. You'll have to listen to it yourself. But I just appreciate you all stepping up, and that this, I hope, will be voted in. Thank you very much.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
My name is Logan Neely.
You don't have to hold it, just make
There
sure
we
it
go.
comes on.
All right, it's on. My name is Logan Neely. I represent the board in a Boys and Girls Club in a voluntary capacity. And I, just want to echo the sentiments of everyone that's come up before me and said their piece. And also in my professional capacity, I represent a variety of different employers in the area. And over the years, it's been a lot of, dependent care. Where do we get it? And how can I keep our employees here? Because we can't afford to, give them that opportunity. And I just think, the amount of work and time and consideration that our executive team at the club has put into it, as well as our board, this is a planned process, and we have dotted our I's and crossed our T's, and, very excited, and hopefully with your guys' vote, we can move forward. Thank you.
All right, please sign in.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else?
Am I on?
Is it green?
I-
All right.
Okay. I'm Carrie Wilson. I live in the area, and my concern is the traffic in the morning and at night. That's 100 cars in the morning, 100 cars at night when you have that many kids. I do work in the child care, and I have worked in elderly care. My concern is, the facility, the the older people, a lot of them are dying or they're very ill and pain. They don't want a lot of noise. I wondered if they asked them or their family. You know, I can see the facility liking this, but I'm not sure if the people that actually live there like it. But my main concern for me is the drop-off on Mountain Street. Because when they built those buildings, they told us they would not allow parking there. They were going to keep the parking so that we can park and have our plumber, our electrician, our lawn people, and, you know, if you need housekeeping, we have parking for those people that come. I do need to get out on Carroll Drive, you know, to be able to, because of the traffic. And I definitely, those kids should not be dropped off on the west side and trying to cross Mountain Street in the traffic. It's just so dangerous. They do that on Division Street, it's bad. They do that in front of Fritch sometimes. Fritch is better because they have crossing guards. But this facility will not have crossing guards. It does not have, you know, the slow school zone. And it's a lot of kids in one area. I wouldn't want my kids that compact myself. I take care of kids, and because there's so many kids, they get lost in the shuffle, and also the germs they get. I know someone that threw their kids out of daycare because the kids were sick every day, and they couldn't keep them in there because there was so many germs exchanged that it was bad. So, you know, I'm not totally against it, but it's so many people there. It's just so big. I didn't realize they were going to do that much. And and I didn't like that I got the notice so short, and then I trying to find information on it. It takes me a long time to read this and respond, and I didn't get it until the paper on Saturday showed up. And yeah, so right before the holidays, it's not fair. A lot of people were gone. They're going to be shocked when they realize how big it is.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Two ma'ams. Either one.
I've got room.
Brett, why don't you back up a minute?
Yeah.
And then that way we can get everybody in here.
Move here.
I think we're okay. I think well, maybe we're not. Okay. Good evening. I'm pleased to be appearing before you. I am Ronnie Hanneman, the Executive Director of the Carson City Chamber of Commerce. And we, as a chamber, support this venture. Since 1993, the Boys and Girls Club of Western Nevada has impacted the lives of many youths in our area. The club creates engaging experiences that ignite kids' passions and connects them to a sense of belonging. We certainly believe that the Smart Start School being proposed on East Mountain Street is the right beginning for our children and will provide them a safe place to learn and to grow. We support the proposed school since we think it will allow parents, mostly females, to re-enter the job market to fill the many vacant spots caused by the closure of businesses during COVID, forcing parents to stay home. Half of all workers and nearly 60% of parents cite the lack of childcare as their reason for leaving the workforce in the first place. When childcare is unavailable, employment declines for mothers. I live in a neighborhood, as does the sheriff, near the Boys and Girls Club, and have never seen children running about screaming. Right next door to the club is a senior housing development that is never vacant. Carson City needs more childcare learning centers, and this fills a critical need. I don't need to give you all the other statistics because you've heard them over and over tonight. But we think that the Boys and Girls Club in Carson City, and probably in Douglas, which I don't know about, but it really is a much needed facility coming. So I don't know the area. I do know the area where it's going, and I don't know, all the other details, but I do know it is needed in our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Midge Breeden. I'm a 45-year resident of Carson City. I'm in favor of this project, and the reason I'm bothering to take some of your time is just to encourage you for this kind of development, where I love what our city has done already that brings people together in various ways. I think this is an absolutely excellent opportunity to bring together children and the elderly and let them enrich each other. I think it's brilliant. And the other thing is that the Boys and Girls Club has an incredible track record of planning and executing things that have been so good for the community. So I very much encourage this project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last chance. Okay. You bring it back to the board. I think what I'd like to do is do these motions separately so that we've got a good record of them. So the first item would be the change in the zoning. Is there a motion for item 6C?
I'll go ahead and make that motion there.
All right, go ahead.
Move to recommend the Board of Supervisors approval of the requested zoning code amendment based on the ability to make the findings and outline in the staff report.
All right, is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, before the discussion on the special use permit, I'd like the applicant to give clarification on the hours of operation.
Okay. And I'd like Heather also, if there's any, I think there was one or two questions in there. Would you answer those also?
Mr. Chair, can I ask who seconded?
Burn.
Thank you, Commissioner Cron.
So the trafficker, or sorry, the commenter had commented on traffic, particularly in the morning and the evening when pickup and drop off is the most heavy, and also worried for the seniors in the congregate care facility, and then concerned about parking on Mountain Street. So I'll start with Mountain Street. In terms of Mountain Street itself, it's wide enough to accommodate parking on both sides of the street. It's a public street. So these guys aren't reserving that space. What they did is they provided information showing that that frontage on Mountain can accommodate up to 5 vehicles in front of their property. However, Mountain Street is a public street and any member of the public is able to park there.
Did they not also discuss in their traffic plan making that a quote loading zone?
They did discuss that, but that was before they proposed providing on-site pickup and drop-off parking spaces.
All right.
And then in terms of the pickup and drop-off in the morning and evening, the applicant did provide a pretty detailed 2-page response in terms of when employees and when parents with children were going to be arriving. And they broke it down, I think, into half-hour segments. So based on the numbers that they were showing, the east parking lot can accommodate the pickup and drop-off and employee parking. And as Brett had mentioned, they're going to ask their clients to focus on parking in the parking lot to help reduce the potential impacts to the neighbors on the west side of the property. And then the other thing is the concern for noise. We always get that comment when we're looking at a child care facility or a school. Children do make noise. But I think the applicant's plan to have a staggered play time and having staff out there can help to limit and mitigate those potential impacts with the neighbors. And perhaps if the Planning Commission would like to discuss that, they can speak with the applicant as to what the plan for mitigation of noise impacts may be. But that was the only
Okay.
comment with concerns.
And operating hours?
Operation hours are 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay. Commissioner Carn, do you have?
Just a couple of follow-up questions for maybe Mr. Pote or Heather, whichever chooses to take this question on. But from a layman's perspective, there has been a lot of talk about traffic. And so from a layman's perspective, I mean, the traffic report was in the report, but what really are we looking at potentially on Mountain Street and or Nye Lane with this facility? If I was to stand there today and watch the traffic go by, and I would stand there when the facility opened, what would I see different?
Stephen Pote for the record. So the traffic impact study uses the ITE rates for a childcare facility and the size of the building. Based on those, in the peak hour, we're looking at about a little over 30 cars per hour, so one car every 2 minutes, and that's at the project entrance. The vast majority are anticipated to go out to Carson Street, since that's the arterial that's nearby. So the study's anticipating about 8 cars turning onto Mountain Street in the peak hour.
No, thank you. That gives me a better sense of, the volume. And as Heather noted, Mountain's a wide street and there is traffic through there. And yeah, you do go probably a little faster than you probably should there because it's so wide. But I just wanted to, because that had come up not only in some of the public comments, but also, here tonight. So I just wanted to get in my own mind, what kind of intensity of traffic we're talking about. Because a lot of times I think when someone comes in and maybe doesn't understand a project, putting, if you will, the hat on the traffic as a way to stop a project or to mitigate it, maybe they just don't understand. And so I think your explanation, at least for me, helped clarify that for me of what kind of intensity of driving we would see at those peak times. And based on what you're discussing with me, it's not a significant amount of increase. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's fair.
Anything else? Okay.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yeah, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Could you put back up the plan view of the building? Thank you. There we go. So I was just curious, since I've seen a few of these come through in the last few years, the playground area at 1,800 square feet. And I know this is probably a state code thing there, but is that big enough for 100 kids? That's not a big playground.
Yeah, but not all 100 kids be outside at one time. And so for staggered play times, that 145 square feet would be perfect for that.
And this layout that you have here could act, I mean, you've got a lot of room in between what is a garage there and the playground area. So, I mean, nothing's written in stone that this is going to be your final layout, right? You could have something, you could, take away some of the parking lot there and add playground to it and so forth, right?
Correct. Yes.
And then I have three other comments really, which are just non-relevant to this. Okay. And it's really good to see something positive come out of the ashes of a law office. He's not laughing. And with all these good things that they're saying, why don't you take over the old Walmart building in the Ormsby house too?
We have plans soon to
Kmart,
come.
yes, the Kmart building, yeah.
Commissioner, if I may, for the record, Michelle Williams, Director of the Smart Start. The 1,800 square feet would accommodate 40 children at a time. It's 45 square feet per child that is in the play area. And we would have 2 separate play areas, one for smaller little feets and for the bigger feet.
So there is a number. I was looking for that. So thank you for clarifying
45.
that.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Was that it? That was only two questions. I thought you said you had three.
No, I had two, the old Kmart building and the Ormsby
Oh,
House,
okay, all right,
the
got it.
vacant spots where we're looking for something to move in.
Okay.
Are you ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
may. Commissioner Perry, sorry. I asked about the hours of operation because I guess in listening to the testimony and also as part of the master plan update, I've been talking to businesses, including the hospital, and have really had my eyes opened as to the need for childcare. And I'm a little worried about any limitations on the hours of operation. There's nothing in the conditions regarding the hours of operation, but they are in the findings. So I would suggest if the planning commission's so inclined, if your feeling is we don't need to limit it from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., granted that's their intention, that you include a statement to that effect on the record. Because otherwise, if they say, gosh, we have these nurses, we need to be open at 6:30, it means we're coming in for an amendment to the special use permit. There's a couple $1,000 fee for that, and so on. So just something to think about. I don't think it has to be a condition. It can just go on the record.
Okay. Did we just put it on the record, or does one of us have to say it?
I just asked you to think about it.
I see. I see. Do you see a need for your hours to change significantly?
We will not be a 24-hour daycare.
Understand that.
However, there is a great need earlier in the mornings and later in the evenings, specifically with Carson Tahoe, our second largest employer. And so I would not be opposed to that wording either.
Well, again, I don't know that I think it ought to become a condition of approval, but maybe there's some place for an operational standard that says in the event of, certain conditions, we can be open at this hour. I don't know how you would do that.
I mean, even if we just buffered it an hour on either side, and if the commission feels they can still make the findings, whoever makes the motion could say something to the effect of, in making the findings, that the findings can be made even if the hours of operation were 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. It creates a little bit of a buffer. And it just creates a record, because if something has to start a little bit earlier, it takes a few months to get before you and so on.
Okay.
Why don't we just make it one of the conditions and make it 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.? And that way you can go do what you want. And that's realistic, I think, for the neighborhood there, because those are common shift change times for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that would be, we would add that as condition
It's just number six.
6, right.
Are you saying 6 a.m. to 8?
8 p.m.
8 p.m.
Hours of operation, yeah,
Shall not exceed.
right.
Is that okay? All right. Is that your motion, Mr. Perry?
You want me to make a motion? I move to approve the special use permit LU 2023-423 based on the ability to make the required findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report, with the addition of condition number 6, which shall read: the operating times for this facility shall be between 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Second.
All right, and before we vote, you gave me a nod. Will you give me a verbal yes that that's acceptable?
Yes, I approve. That's acceptable. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Kilgore. We're going to adjourn for 7 minutes.
reconvene the Planning Commission meeting and go on to the next item. First of all, I'd also like to thank the board for stepping in on that one. That was the commissioners, so thank you very much. The next is,
6E.
I know, another page. 6E, MPA 2023-0408 for possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding recommendations to the Board of Supervisors Board considering the implementation of the master plan and annual master plan report. Hope.
Thank you. So NRS 278-190 requires the Planning Commission to annually make a recommendation to the board regarding implementation of the master plan. Although we've hired a consultant to update the master plan, that work won't be done till 2025. So I know I've had some questions about why are we doing an annual report and why would we be working on things? We're doing this entire update, but we have the entire year of 2024 between now and the adoption of the update. So there are a few changes that have been requested by private property owners that I'm bringing forward today to you for your consideration, as well as a couple cleanups. But first, I'll talk about what we accomplished last year as part of the annual master plan update. We continued the review of Title 18 and the development standards, and those documents are now with the district attorney's office. They've only been with them for a week, so I have to say that for Dan Yu. He just got them. The Lampa Ranch.
But didn't Dan Yu say he would have those done by the end of December?
No, that was Title 18, not the development standards.
Okay.
Okay, so he's good. Lampa Ranch park sites were, had received a master plan designation of Parks and Recreation and a zoning district of public neighborhood specific plan area. You'll remember those parcels didn't exist when the specific plan was created, so we needed to update that for the transparency of the intended use. At the west end of Roads and Betts, the master plan designation for that hilly portion of the area was designated low-density residential with a zoning of single-family 21. Fleischman Way's parking lot, which was the parking lot associated with the old hospital, was zoned single-family 6,000, so that if that parking lot stops being a parking lot and is redeveloped, it will be redeveloped consistent with the master plan. And the Brown Street specific plan area was eliminated. So for next year, what are we looking at? The city disposed of 2621 Northgate Lane. So that city was zoned that property was zoned public community because it was under public ownership. Now that's under private ownership. It should be rezoned as general commercial, which would be consistent with the adjacent zoning. There's an area south of Hot Springs. It's east of Gonai and north of College Parkway, and I have the map up on the screen. This area, it's where Sonic is, and there's some offices in there and service uses. There's a salon in there. So this area has a master plan designation of industrial as well as a zoning designation of limited industrial, but it's indeed developed as more of a commercial and service office center. So the master plan designation of community regional commercial would probably be more appropriate with a zoning of either general commercial or retail commercial. The property owner of a vacant parcel in this area has asked staff to look into the designation in this area as he's seeking to develop the vacant parcel for commercial use that he felt would be consistent. If you were to agree to include this as part of the master plan update, and more importantly, the Board of Supervisors, it wouldn't be approving these changes. It would just say, yeah, let's look at these changes and then bring it back for public hearing. Another area where a private landowner has asked us to look is north of Carmine, east of Lampa, west of Bunch. So this area is developed with single-family residential uses as well as some multiple units on a single parcel. The master plan designation's medium-density residential, and the zoning designation is mobile home 6 and mobile home 12. A property owner who has multiple mobile homes on a single parcel has asked staff to look into high-density residential and multifamily apartment in this area. He's indicated there's a lot of properties that have multiple units, which on this picture, you can kind of see that appears to be the case. If this were included in, as part of the master plan annual report, the staff would inventory the area to determine how many nonconforming uses we had, where we had multiple units, dwelling units on a single parcel. I think the change of the master plan designation, the zoning may encourage and in fact allow for redevelopment in this area, whereas say they have 4 mobile homes on the property right now, they'll hold on to those 4 mobile homes because that's 4 incomes, right? But right now, if they were to, move those 4 mobile homes off and go to redevelop, they're getting 1 unit versus 4 units. So it's something that could help really help out and get some investment in this portion of the city. So we wouldn't necessarily do it. We would inventory first and see if it made sense and report back. The next area where I've received an inquiry, and it's an area you've looked at, is the east side of South Solomon, south side of Fairview. So on April 6, 2023, based on the annual report, the board amended the zoning at the northeast corner of Solomon and Colorado from limited industrial in single-family 1 acre to single-family 6,000. So you can see it on the big screen where I have the arrow. So that's this property here. Well, the person who owns this property actually owns the property to the north that's kind of in the area that's highlighted, owns 2 other properties. And so over here where we have the zoning, you can see he owns 2 other properties. So his representative has reached out to me and asked if the entire holdings, if you will, could be medium density residential and the single family 6,000. So that's something we would look at. If it didn't seem to be reasonable to go with single family 6,000 in this area, he's saying, well, then can the part you just rezoned go back to the industrial so that the holdings are all under the same zoning district? So again, inclusion of this on the annual report would just mean we'd look at it, we'd consider a public hearing in the future. This would not be approving anything. Lastly, is the airport, I don't have a slide for it, the airport overlay. That was added to the annual report last year because of issues we had with Carson Medical Group was building next to the airport, and there were issues with the FAA determination of no hazard, which they did get a determination of no hazard. But right now, Title 16 includes our aviation regulations, and it's not super clear, and a really easy, obvious tool that you use when you're trying to create compatibility between an airport and surrounding land uses is an airport overlay zone. And what it would do is say, if you're building in this zone, you go through this model that's available on the FAA website and show that there's not going to be a conflict with air travel. If there's a potential conflict, you then have to go to the FAA for a determination of no hazard. That way, everybody would know if they're building in that area, wow, I might have a conflict with the airport. I probably shouldn't plan my 4-story hotel here. Or if I am, I better get my determination of no hazard before I get too far along. We didn't have time to get that done in 2023, but I think it's a project that should occur, and I put it on I'm recommending it for 2024. At this time of year, when we look at the master plan annual report, we also tend to look at growth trends. You look at it during growth management, so that's sort of in July, and we'll look at it now. What you'll see on this chart is residential growth stayed strong in 2023. With the war in Ukraine, with interest rates going up, everyone thought things would drop off and we'd slow down. We haven't slowed down. Multifamily projects, including Sierra Flats, which is over on Buckeye Way, 160 units were permitted. Brown Street is 81 units were permitted. And Eagles Landing, which is on Roop, that's the affordable housing at Northridge and Roop, 126 units were permitted. So you can see we have a lot of multifamily housing starts. We also did a lot of single-family housing starts, more in 2023 than in 2022. Last time I checked, we were over 400 single-family housing starts. And I think I'm right about that. No, I'm wrong about that. It was 400 was the total with the multifamily. But with the single family, we are staying strong. It's throughout the city. Last month, we're in December now. No, earlier this month, I toured our consultants for the master plan around and was able to show them how every single section of the city has new construction going on in terms of residential. The primary places where we're seeing the single-family residential are Lampa Ranch and Anderson Ranch. In terms of population and land use capacity, we really focus on this during growth management, but I'm showing it tonight as well. And you'll see that right now we have sufficient water capacity to accommodate the growth at this point, and we'll continue to study that every year as part of growth management. And last, the construction activities and development trends. So again, despite the interest rates, shortages in the labor market, supply chain issues, builders not carrying inventory, construction's strong in 2023, and that doesn't even take you through the end of the year. That's only taking you through November, and we're already outpacing the previous 10 years. So that is my report on the annual master plan. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those or suggestions for other items we should be looking at. Thank you.
Commissioner Cron?
Good evening, Hope. How are you this evening? Hey, a question for you. You touched on this, but I wanted to follow up with you on the, where'd it go? I lost it in here. Yes, the end of Road Street. That's the one. It's kind of up here. Didn't get folded out here. Yes, we did the end of Road Streets, the Betts Streets in that area with low density. There was some discussion at that meeting, I believe, with some of the other parcels kind of just south of Greenhouse Gardens, and that went from, I think, a proposed apartment zoning to back to single family, and I think that's what we move forward to the board. Did that go forward to the board, or is that going to be included in this as well?
I did not include that because I actually brought the consultants for the master plan update out there, and I'd like them to study it as part of the master plan update. The ones I brought to you, with the exception of the land the city disposed of and the airport overlay, which was part of last year's anyway, are things that were owner initiated, where the owner came in and talked to me about that. On that one, that was an effort to create master plan consistency between the master plan designation and the zoning. That was not owner initiated. That was simply a cleanup. And so what I did was I brought the consultant out there and just explained that that entire area needed to be looked at and that there was a lot of development pressure in that portion of the city. And so since there's no interest in doing something immediately on that, I felt that could be delayed.
Okay, no, that was just that. Thank you.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Hope. On the city population projection slide, I think I've seen this before, and this is just a curiosity. So the Nevada State demographers' projections are different than the city's projections. Who projects the city's projections?
I will have to look up that formula. The formula was set a long time ago, and we've just held true to that formula for consistency, and I can't tell you the origin of that formula.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And I'm just going to have to put up my thing about, are we going to do something between the different commercial designations?
As part of the Title 18 update, we'll have what's called the Table of Permitted Uses. And the Table of Permitted Uses will be updated as part of that project to basically look at something that should be a no-brainer. I think you guys had the escape room, for example, and you said, well, why are we even looking at this? This should just be allowed there. And to kind of identify what are those uses that maybe, I'll pick tattooing for a minute, maybe used to have bad connotations, or there was concern and there's no longer concern, and allow those to be what's called a ministerial review, which means it's just allowed as opposed to a conditional use. So that will be Title 18, not the master plan.
Anything further? Okay. Okay. Commissioner Lloyd.
Commissioner Lloyd, for the record, apparently I don't know how to use an iPad. I would be interested, if it is not too difficult with growth management, to see on the Carson City population projections, like historically, how accurate the city's population projections have been on the chart with our formula. Thank you.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors acceptance of the master plan annual report as presented by staff.
I'll second.
Third.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion's granted. Okay.
I'm sorry, I think we missed public comment.
Oh, here we go.
Tinny, come on up.
Rewind.
Sorry.
Thank you very much, Chair, and Hope. Thank you. One of the things that I would love to have on this master plan as it goes forward is that one of the stipulations on meeting certain criteria is to add a portion of that to be the environments. I don't think we take enough into account when we're letting things go into, we should have reviews. We shouldn't have to, as an individual, say, okay, we're a Lime area with an aquatic area nearby, so maybe you might have the skipperjack. I'm sorry, it's a Carson's wandering skipper, butterflies. We shouldn't have we shouldn't have to have someone pull that out for us. Those type of reviews and water and how it travels are being done, but the environment and the insect life and the tree life and the plant life around here is not being considered. And I think that should be a stipulation on anything you put in, period. I think that should be added to the master plan. It should be our consideration. Yeah, if we say, listen, it's private property, we're going to give you a little bit of a push here, but there are some plants that we're running out of. There are butterflies we're running out of, and it doesn't excuse a private individual from being conscientious, but if they ignore it, why should we lose it? I don't think we should be ignoring private property or city property or other, even state property. So I just like that to be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just mention, I appreciate Denny's comments. What we looked at tonight was just the annual report, not the larger update. And so for the next 12 months, I hear what he's saying, but I don't think that that's something we could incorporate in the next 12 months.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Then I have one other thing if you're, okay. I would like to say, Rick Perry, would you like to say a couple of words because this is going to be your last meeting?
Yes, I would. Yep. Wrote some little notes here. So, thanks. You're happy to get rid of me, I know. If there was a lot of public here, they might
just a
too.
second. I must have messed up again. Okay, what?
Oh, yeah, we had a motion, we need to vote.
Oh, okay, we got to vote again? Okay, we had public comment. You want to repeat that? Do it again for your last.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors acceptance of the master plan annual report as presented by staff.
And I still second it.
And third that.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, now, thank you. Now, again, Rick Perry, we're going to miss you.
So after 50-something meetings, my tenure's come to an end. I fulfilled my 4-year term, and I have not asked to be renewed as I've got some things going on in my life that are going to take me away from here, and I don't want to be an absent planning commissioner. So I want to thank, all my fellow commissioners that are here tonight and the ones that I served with in the past for, for all of the camaraderie and work and so forth. And I have the highest respect of everybody who does terms on the Planning Commission. I want to thank city staff too, because you guys put a lot of time into teeing up these meetings and a lot of the work and nuts and bolts before anything ever comes to this meeting. And I want to thank Randy Rice for, putting up with my crazy questions on roads and other infrastructure items that are there. It's been a pleasure and an honor to serve. I was I was recruited by Bob Kroll back when he was the mayor here, and it's been a pleasure to serve under all of the commissioners. I encourage, other citizens, I wish there was more here tonight, to raise their hands and try to join commissions and boards here, because I think it's a great way of learning about city government and how to build consensus and how to have a citizen to volunteer citizen dialogue and come to a conclusion. This is the best form of government, I think, in this country, because it's people to people, and I have always enjoyed that about it. Everyone's always been very respectful. I had a few kind of topics that were close to my heart, so I'm just going to throw them out as ideas. You may see me back here to testify sometime in the future if one of these things comes up. Yeah. Right.
About water?
But,
About water?
yeah, beep, 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 right, I'm done. So, those topics that were close to my heart, and this one really the last couple of years, is the affordable housing issue there, because I do see that as a real challenge of how to do that. And our workshop, I think, fleshed out some of those issues that maybe plans could be built around. And I do think that the master plan update is an opportunity to, look at infill greenfields and brownfields development to maybe target some of those things, since we don't have a lot of blocks of big land anymore, that, those could be surgically looked at and put in during that process to promote that. And as you all know, growth management was always something close to my heart because of water, as I worked for the state engineer for 7 years here in the state. And, I love that process here. We're one of the few cities that does that, actually takes it into consideration. I think there's one other city or municipality that does it, but it's rather unique in the state. And it was wonderful this year to see a lot of citizens show up for it, because sometimes in past years, nobody did, right? But those issues started to arise where at least they could hear, may not be what they want to hear, but they could hear what the issues are and what the real truth is about things like water use. Now, on the flip side of that, there's one thing that I've been frustrated with a bit. When I started my first 6 months, I went to 4 or 5 meetings on the update of Title 18. And, sometimes I think you can spend too much time trying to get something perfect. I know it was a total rewrite, but sometimes you just got to say, hey, let's take a snapshot of what it is now, because I think it's getting confusing to people, especially on things like accessory dwelling units and stuff like that, where it just needs to get approved and done. And if something's wrong with it, go back and fix it. It'll never be perfect, just like anything else. So thank you all for putting up with me, and look forward to reading about you in the paper.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Rick.
Does that mean you're buying the beer?
Yeah.
There's no bars close by.
Oh,
Oh, not sure we got that one right.
no.
We're gonna go to the hookah lounge.
Chair, if I could, I have really appreciated Commissioner Perry's wisdom as he's been here. I've been part of the freshman class that came in last year about this time. So I do thank you for moving us, for both on behalf of Commissioner DeChristopher and myself, moving us into the sophomore class now, because the new freshmen will come in. But seriously, I've appreciated your wisdom. I've appreciated the thoughts that you bring to the table, and being new on the commission for the past year, it's been very helpful to have someone who sat on this commission and, sometimes will challenge the norm And I certainly did appreciate that courage and that challenge. So thank you.
No, and I have to agree. I think the one thing that really impressed me with you, Rick, is during our asphalt issue, is that your knowledge and your background actually helped the rest of the commission wrap our arms around what was going on with the asphalt plant. So thank you. Anything else? Okay. We're not going to talk about the slaughterhouse because we did what we needed to do. Okay, so anyway, anything else?
I guess I will have to join Rotary now so that I can continue seeing Mr. Perry. It's a wealth of information, and I'll miss him.
I'll sponsor you.
Thank you. I'd like to go ahead and adjourn. Oh, you have
Yeah.
one more report? I thought you were just reported out.
No, I didn't do.
Okay, I'm
Well, first,
sorry.
on behalf of staff, again, we enjoy working with all of you, but Commissioner Perry particularly, it's always nice when we meet with any of you, and this was very typical with Commissioner Perry, and you just really challenge our thinking and stretch our thinking and make us look at things in a different way. And that was much appreciated. I think it yielded a better product for Carson City. So appreciate the camaraderie. Your next meeting, this is what Commissioner Perry's going to miss, okay? Let's see, we have a minor special use permit for a garage and workshop storage space over on Molly Drive. A special use permit for expanding the fleet maintenance building and tire and welding operations room at Public Works. A special use permit for a warehouse for the wastewater division, that's over on Fifth Street. A special use permit for a warehouse and distribution project over on Arrowhead Drive, and a marijuana dispensary over on, that's a special use permit for marijuana dispensary on Highway 50. Also, hopefully, I think most of you have had your interviews with the consultants on the master plan update, and Cecilia's been reaching out. We're trying to have a joint meeting in end of January with the Board of Supervisors, so the consultant can talk to both groups together and kind of a starting point. I don't know the exact agenda on that. So if you can look for that email from Cecilia and let her know your availability so we can try to figure out dates on that, that would be great. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I have one more thing, because we do have growth management coming up, and I do know this is something we would have to have, some time for staff, is that we did have the marijuana cultivation facility that exceeded the water allocation. And what I'd like to see is I'd like to actually see a review of all of the marijuana application to see what their use is, and if we have other ones that are exceeding the city allocation. Because I think that's going to be really important for growth management. Okay, thank you.
Just one last thing. I do want to compliment Cecilia for organizing the interview with the part-time consultant. And so I had a good time with him. We talked and exchanged ideas, and I thought it's Armando, right? Armando, yeah. Armando was great. I enjoyed my time with him, and him and I got crossed ways on our first meeting, and so he gave me a little extra time, which I appreciated. And so we shared lots of ideas, so that was good.
Public comment.
Yes. Yes, Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. And Merry Christmas.
Okay, are we going to adjourn? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Do I second the thirds? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr.
So
Perry
moved.
votes no.